Hey everybody, Dusty Spins here. I'm still not 100% from that cold I had last week, but I'm here to make a video ranking the Smiths albums. Let's go ahead and see if my list differs from yours. Let's go ahead and get it. Hey music lovers, today we're going to go ahead and rank the Smiths albums. I will only be including the studio albums. I won't be including the compilation albums, Louder Than Bombs, Hatful of Hollow, or Rank, since that was a live album. I also won't be including the singles or the best of 1 and 2. If, like me, you grew up in Southern California during the 80s, we had a radio station called KROQ. It was 106.7 on our FM dial. Now, the thing is about that radio station, or if you remember listening to that radio station, during the 80s, we had something we refer to as the Holy Trinity, which actually consisted of the Smiths, Depeche Mode, and The Cure. I think the way that I was introduced to the Smiths was in 1986, when I was about 14 years old. My mother used to like to frequent this place called Norwalk Records, which was over in Los Angeles County. She used to like to go there to buy her oldies 45s, all of her Chicano rock that she was into, stuff like that. And she used to keep, or actually, the owner used to keep this small section of things that were ordered but were never picked up. And I remember going to that section this one day while my mother was shopping, and she had pulled out some cassettes. She told me, well, I know you're into this, K-rock type music, 91X type music. Well, you might want to check this cassette out. I'll let you have it for less than cost. And it was The Queen Is Dead. Now, the thing I remember most is I took this cassette home and I had this little pitiful player. It was a Quasar little boom box. It wasn't even a boom box, just a radio that I used to play all my cassettes on. And I remember putting The Queen Is Dead in it from like the first tribal drums that you hear at the beginning of The Queen Is Dead on track number 1. I was just sucked in, and I've been a Smiths fan ever since. So before we actually start with a ranking, let's go ahead and give a little bit of background on the Smiths. They were formed in 1982 in Manchester, England. Of course, it was formed by Stephen Patrick Morrissey, shortened down to Morrissey later. And then, of course, you had Johnny Marr, who was a guitar player, bassist Andy Rourke, and drummer Mike Joyce. Now, before the formation of the Smiths, Stephen Patrick Morrissey had actually written several books on music and film. Now, also, he did front a punk band called the Nosebleeds. Now, before the formation of the Smiths, Johnny Marr had been in several bands that he had actually been in with Andy Rourke, who later became the bass player for the Smiths. Now, since the breakup of the Smiths, he's actually become a highly regarded session musician, doing session musician work for the Pet Shop Boys, Talking Heads, Brian Ferry, Hans Zimmer. He's also become a sitting member in multiple groups, such as The Pretenders, The Electronic, Modest Mouse, and The Cribs. Now, he did start releasing his own solo music in 2003, starting with an album called Boomslang. So let's go ahead and get started with the ranking. Now, remember, this is my own personal ranking, my own personal opinion. I'm pretty sure my opinion is probably going to differ from a lot of people who are fans of the Smiths. Now, remember, this is just an opening for debate. All opinions and all comments will be respected. So number 4 for me is going to be Meat is Murder. If you can actually see it here with my lights reflecting off of the plastic. If you can actually see it. So now, Meat is Murder. The reason why I ranked this album so low is because actually growing up, it wasn't my most popular go-to album. It wasn't like the most popular album in their catalog for me. Now, of course, in my advanced years, now that I'm 50, I have grown to really have an appreciation for the album now let's go ahead and get to some of the bare facts. It was released February 11th of 1984. It became the band's only album to reach number 1 on the UK album charts and charted for 13 weeks. That's pretty impressive. Now, it also reached number 110 on the US Billboard 500. Not an easy feat. Now, I don't know how many people owned it when they were teenagers, but most American kids will remember How Soon Is Now was actually included on US pressings. The pressing that I just showed you actually is a Rhino repress, which doesn't include How Soon Is Now, but it is on the Rhino repress, of course, of Hatful of Hollow, where it originally was in the first place. But I know that it wasn't included on UK pressings until 1982, and that was on the UK WEA reissues, I believe. Yeah, the UK WEA reissues. So high points for me, definitely, are How Soon Is Now, because like I said, it was included in American pressings when I was growing up. The Headmaster Ritual, and That Joke Isn't Funny Anymore. And I'm not saying that because the joke isn't funny anymore. It's because that's the name of the song. Okay, for my number 3 spot, I'm going to go ahead and pick the Smiths' first album, the debut album, just titled The Smiths. If anyone can see that because of the bright lights, it's kind of reflecting off of it. Now, this album was released the 20th of February, 1984. Now, to me, this album sounds very raw. Not the sound I'm saying, the sound of the band is very raw. Now, this album was actually recorded twice. It was recorded once with producer Troy Tate, and then it was recorded a second time with another producer called John Porter at the request of Rough Trade Records. Not a request from the band, because I mean, what band wants to record an album twice? Anyways, so actually years later, Johnny Marr had expressed Troy's vision was to capture the band's raw live energy, which is why I think that when this album was re-recorded and it was remixed, that it was actually done pretty raw, and I think that was to appease Johnny Marr, because Johnny Marr was pretty much pleased with the first recording, the first mix of the album. So, but now high points for me on this album would be Still Ill, Hand in Glove, What Difference Does It Make, Pretty Girls Make Graves, Suffer the Little Children, This Charming Man. I know a lot of people in the UK are going to say, wait a second, This Charming Man wasn't actually on this LP. But the thing is that American pressings, we did get This Charming Man on this LP. So this one right here actually is a repress from Rhino, which actually faithfully reproduces the UK pressing pretty much, even right down to the label. So This Charming Man, of course, isn't included on this. You can get it on, I think it is on... Is it on Louder Than Bombs? Is it on Louder Than Bombs? I believe it is. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Hatful of Hollow. So, yeah, so at number 3, definitely the Smiths' debut album. Okay, moving right along to number 2, I'm going to go ahead and choose Strangeways, Here We Come. Wow, it's really not going to show up that great under these lights. I'm using some really bright lights, but it's a really beautiful cover. Now, the thing about this album is, this album usually... I'm really surprised I did not rank this one a lot higher, because usually whenever I do a ranking of albums, not just Smiths albums, but, a full lineup of albums, be it my top 20, top 10, this is always like number 2 or number 1. This album to me is just full of Smiths goodness, all the bangers on here, starting from Russian and Push and The Land Is Ours. I started Something I Couldn't Finish, Girlfriend in a Coma, Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before. Just every song on here is just a freaking banger. It's just like, whenever I put this album on, it's going to be a commitment. I'm going to listen to the whole thing. I'm not going to, stop halfway through or anything of that sort. So for me, I can't pick a high point for this album because it's just the whole freaking album, And most people, when they start, listening to the Smiths or they hear about the Smiths, like especially with a lot of my kids' friends, when they would be curious about like seeing people with Smiths t-shirts and stuff like that, and they want to like listen to the Smiths, this will be the first album I put on. I'll be like, Strangeways, Here We Come. And sadly, I have to explain to them that, this is the beginning of the story, the Smith story for them, but this was the actual end of the Smith story because this was the last album. Last studio album. After this, it was over. But yeah, most definitely, Strangeways, Here We Come. So if you stick around this long, I'm only doing studio albums, and you're a Smiths fan, number 1's got to be The Queen Is Dead. Now, this album came out the 16th of June, 1986. Reason why this album is so important to me is it's one of the first albums that I purchased with my own money, with my own allowance. Now, I told a story earlier how I took this cassette tape home after purchasing it, and played it over and over again on my little Quasar boombox. It had like 2 little 5-inch speakers, and I just played it till it like was warbled and worn out. And that year of '86, though, this album came out. Depeche Mode Black Celebration came out. A lot of great albums for me came out that year. That was like one of my most formative years in music, I think. I think from '86 to '88 were just really great years in music for me. A lot of people in the music community would probably disagree, but for me, anyways, very formative years. Now, this album actually was written while they were on tour in 1985. Now, Johnny Marr has cited that the Stooges, the Velvet Underground, and 60s garage rock were really, really, really big influences on this album. Now, as far as saying what are the high points of this album for me, same thing as Strangeways, Here We Come. I mean, this is an iconic, phenomenal album. I mean, the cover is iconic and phenomenal. You still see kids wearing t-shirts, with this on the front of it. But every track, from The Queen Is Dead all the way to, Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. I mean, just the whole album. I mean, let's be honest, which one of us 80s teenagers didn't listen to I Know It's Over in the Dark and, be depressed about something, whatever it may be it a girl or bad grades or whatever it may be. I mean, I know we all did it. I did it, but most definitely an iconic album. And it's like, it's an album that I'm glad that I can still own to this day and play over and over again and still revisit that time in my life, so so number one for me, I'm going to stick with Queen Is Dead. Well, thank you, music community. Thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. Now, remember, this is just an opening for debate. All opinions will be respected in the comment section. If you want to, it's only 4 albums. Go ahead and give your own list and your own comments. How you would rank them or whatever it is. And I will go ahead and I will engage with you as best as I can. Remember, go ahead, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and comment. That always ends up helping with the algorithm and stuff like that, and also helps me to go ahead and interact with you. Now the other thing is also make sure you get yourself out to a show, whether it be a local show, a major act. Like I said, keep on listening to the music, keep on attending the shows, keep your blood pumping. And until then, remember, stick around people in your music community, people that are like-minded like you. Keep yourself young. And I'm Dusty Spins. I'm out.